5D Mystery School.
Our brains hemisync every single night. We experience the Gateway Project when we sleep. Okay, so when I got out of my dream, the first thing that I started to think about was the Gateway Project because my dream seemed so real, and I was left with the thoughts that like the astral realm is getting more realistic. These dreams are becoming more and more indistinguishable from our waking life. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so I am reading from the declassified files about the CIA Gateway Project. Okay, now the highlighted portion says theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops because the absolute generates no hologram of or about art itself. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest and therefore cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can passively perceive holograms created by a universe, but it cannot be perceived by consciousness operating in the active universe. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply the absolute. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existence are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness and altered states of being may gain access. So when energy is in infinity, when it's experiencing the absolute, when it transcends this physical reality that we are experiencing, it can't generate any hologram. So you are transcending space-time. Now, this part talks about subatomic particles. Even when particles are halfway across the universe from each other, it says that they instantaneously respond to each other's actions, and in doing so, they violate relativity's ban on faster than light velocities. Indeed, regarding attempts to quantify what is known about the behavior of energy in dimensions apparently outside of time-space, Bentov speaks about courageous physicists who are working on hypothetical particles called tachyons, and I've covered this before, which can move at speeds higher than light, which is the boundary for our physical reality. The speed of tachyons starts just above the speed of light and range all the way to infinite velocities. Now, this part talks about outer body experiences. Once an individual becomes proficient in this technique of outer body movement and then reaches the point where he is able to break out of time-space while out of his body, he gains the advantage of clicking out. Remember that. Part of his enhanced consciousness while starting from a base located much closer to the dimensions with which he wishes to communicate. So this talks about the role of REM sleep. Now, this trainer said that he can guarantee out-of-body movements by bringing participants down into a rapid eye movement, the REM state of sleep, and then use the hemisync technique. This may well be a function of the fact that most, if not all, people repeatedly go into an outer body state during REM sleep. Now, this is an important side note. When they're talking about transcending past time-space, now you have to ask yourself, where is time-space being projected from? Now, I want you to think about the movement of a tornado, right? The pattern on a pine cone, the pattern on your finger is this toroidal type movement. Now, where is that being projected from? Now, if you were to think about where the pole star is located and look at this diagram, the direction of time-space evolving, the same way that a tornado carries the wind, the same way that you see that spiraling state, imagine time, right, having that same type of movement, and it's being projected from one location, like the black and white hole that I talked about in another video. I think the name of that lecture was Quantum Black Hole. But anyway, the micro reflects the macro. So if you can find this movement of time-space revolving around itself in a toroidal movement, then you can find the same inside your body when you look at the nucleus of a cell. This is this theory of like the cosmic egg, or as it's been, stated in mythology, the chaos coming out of darkness, or the primordial womb. So imagine time and space projecting from a single point, like the spiraling of a pine cone. which is why the pine cone symbolically was so important to ancient civilizations. And when you reach the synchronization of both hemispheres of your brain, you are able to transcend this reality and experience a, a space where you're clicking out that's higher than the speed of light. Okay, so they included this part in the declassified file, and this is from a book, Secret Oral Teachings in Tibetan Buddhist Sects, and it says that the tangible world is movement, says the masters, not a collection of moving objects, but movement itself. There are no objects in movement. It is the movement which constitutes the objects which appear to us. They are nothing but movement. This movement is a continued and infinitely rapid succession of flashes of energy. All objects perceptible to our senses, all phenomena of whatever kind and whatever aspect they may assume, are constituted by a rapid succession of instantaneous events. All right, so this article is from Popular Mechanics. Your consciousness can enter alternate dimensions while you're dreaming, scientist claims. For the sake of time, I'm just going to read this small excerpt. His hypothesis builds on the many worlds interpretation of quantum theory, which suggests that every decision or event creates branching realities, an infinite array of parallel universes. Leong applies this idea to consciousness. He speculates that sleep reduces the influence of our physical senses and rational mind, giving consciousness the freedom to bypass the usual boundaries of time and space. While scientific studies don't currently support this idea, in Leong's view, dreams might serve as portals to other versions of ourselves existing in other dimensions. There was a scene from Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness where they actually alluded to that fact. So this is a peer-reviewed article, Dreams as Portals to Parallel Realities and Reflections of Self, from David Leong. In summary, the theory of dreams as portals to alternate realities offers a radical new perspective on studying the psyche. It encourages a departure from seeing dreams solely as internal psychological processes and opens up the possibility that they are experiences of other dimensions of consciousness. The part underneath is good. I might have to do a part two, but I want to read it. This perspective invites a reevaluation of the human mind's capabilities and nature of reality, suggesting that the psyche is not just a passive recipient of experiences, but an active explorer of a much broader, possibly infinite, cosmos. Dreams have been historically perceived as mirrors reflecting our conscious waking life, laden with symbolic representations of our desires, fears, and experiences. Conversely, a riveting conjecture exists that dreams might also function as conduits to alternate dimensions or elevated states of consciousness, suggesting a more profound and expansive role than traditionally conceived. Here's another article, Advanced Brain Imaging Study hints at how DMT, dimethyltryptamine, alters perception of reality. Scientists have gleaned new insights into how psychedelics alter conscious experience via their action on brain activity. In a study at Imperial College in London, detailed brain imaging data from 20 healthy volunteers revealed how the potent psychedelic compound, DMT, alters brain function. During the immersive DMT experience, there were increased connectivity across the brain, with more communication between different areas and systems. The changes to brain activity were most prominent in areas linked with higher level functions, such as imagination. Now, I want to point out here that when you go to sleep, your pineal gland secretes a higher dosage of DMT. And the two hemispheres of your brain are synchronized, keep this in mind as we go further, while you are sleeping, which is pretty much the gateway experience, the gateway project. I'm running out of time on this video, but I'm going to make another part because I still have a little bit more to say about this. So make sure that you follow along so that you can see that. All right, so continuing along with that article, DMT can produce intense and immersive altered states of consciousness, with the experience characterized by vivid and bizarre visions, a sense of visiting alternative realities or dimensions, and similarities with near-death experiences. Side note, near-death experiences, something that I'm just fascinated by, right? And with dreams as well. when you are about to pass away, like when you are about to leave your physical body, which means you are going to transcend the speed of light, the boundary to our physical reality, then your brain increases the release of dimethyltryptamine, which happens when you sleep as well. So sleeping and having a near-death experiences can be classified as almost the same experience. We die every night, so we time travel every night. The only difference is when you're dreaming, your soul is still tethered to your body. But when your physical body is no longer energetically possible to live in this physical reality, then the tether is broken. And then I've seen death doulas, especially with videos on TikTok, talk about people see their loved ones or people that they may not know, but somebody in their circle knows, kind of usher them into the afterlife. And there's always this mention of a tunnel of light. So that tunnel of light could be connecting you to another tether back into this reality, entering into that tunnel, which is the point of the projection of this reality. So that white tunnel could be the entrance back into the time space of this physical reality. And the life review that you have is seen through literally through your mind's eye, the same eye, the pineal gland that releases that dimethyltryptamine for you to experience dreams in the first place. And while you are awake in the waking life, it's slow dripping, still creating your perceivable reality. But let's continue. From Psychology Today, DMT, Aliens, and Reality. Of course, the Psychology Today is coming more from like skeptic's view, but I still like to include both sides of the argument. One of the most remarkable features of the DMT experience is the frequency with which users encounter non-human intelligences, often resembling aliens. Even more remarkably, some users come away from these encounters convinced that these entities are somehow real. The psychological aspects of such experiences have not yet been adequately explored by scientific researchers. Another way of saying that is they just can't disprove it. Strassman reported that about half of the 60 volunteers enter what he described as freestanding, independent levels of existence of a highly unusual nature. These places were inhabited by what volunteers described as intelligent beings, entities, aliens, guides, and helpers. These appeared in a variety of forms, such as clowns, reptiles, mantises, bees, spiders, cacti, and stick figures. Side note, if you've ever taken 2CB, then you can see the cartoon universe, which is often depicted in like Marvel's, different multitude of realities, but that's another conversation. There were some consistent themes and experiences of entity contact. Participants frequently reported that these beings seemed to be waiting on them. Volunteers were subjected to an examination by these beings in what appeared to be a technologically advanced setting. Volunteers felt like their mind and body was probed and tested, or even modified in some unexplained way. These beings communicated with the user through gestures, telepathy, or visual imagery. Sometimes the entity seemed loving and caring, other times emotionally detached. Strassman noted the striking parallels between these entity contacts, experiences, and accounts of alien abduction. He considered that alien abduction experiences might occur due to the spontaneous release of naturally occurring DMT in the human brain, although this theory has never been tested. Intriguingly, many volunteers refused to believe that these experiences were hallucinations or dreams, as they seemed too real. Strassman reported being initially quite baffled by and unprepared for the frequency of these entity experiences among his volunteers. Right? Because, how is it that you have this many volunteers, like 60 volunteers, and about half of them are reporting the same contact? And one can logically assume that these volunteers are not linked to each other, like they don't know each other, right? So you can say that they are emotionally attached in a way that they are having the same dream, which empirically proves that the rapid release of DMT introduces you to these other beings in other dimensions. Now, keep that in mind for another article coming along. But they said it seemed too real, and it reminded me of the scene from The Matrix where Morpheus was telling Neo, what is real? Real is nothing more than electrical signals being sent to your brain. Side note, Morpheus in Greco-Roman mythology, one of the sons of Hypnos, like when you hypnotize somebody, is the god of sleep and dreams. Morpheus sends shapes of all kinds to the dreamer, quite like what they were reporting seeing during this experiment. So, in the Matrix, symbolically, you have Morpheus, the god of dreams, right? Communicating with Neo, representing the neocortex. And to substantiate what I just said, let's go to an article. In REM sleep and rodent neocortex and hippocampus reflects excitable dynamics. We report that during NREM sleep, the rodent neocortex and hippocampus are neither endogenously oscillatory nor bistable but are excitable. Neural populations in each region rest in a stable state from which superthreshold fluctuations can induce transient events that are terminated by the influence of adaptation. This is exactly why when you rise out of your dreams, you remember them in a way that seems so real because of that communication between your hippocampus and your neocortex, which proves what Morpheus was saying to Neo, what we perceive as real is nothing more than electrical signals being sent to our brain. And from this article, a picture perfect look at how electrical activity travels through the brain. And this comes from a new imaging technique developed by BU and MIT researchers. Brain cells function using rapid electrical impulses, a process that underlines our thoughts, behavior, and perception of the world. With the new voltage sensor, it is also possible to measure very small fluctuations in activity that occur even when a neuron is not firing a big spike in electrical activity. Which why back into this matrix, Morpheus was comparing these physical bodies to batteries. Your cells literally run off of electricity. Okay, moving on. Now, I want you to think about the term stream of consciousness because from the moment you rise up out of that time traveling sleep that you had, you start to stream your consciousness again. And in this article, they link consciousness to a higher dimension beyond our perception. In the synopsis, physicist Michael Previca proposes a controversial theory suggesting that human consciousness connects to hidden dimensions beyond our perception. He argues that to conclude this lecture, I'm just going to insert some elements that I believe to be noteworthy. This article comes from Big Think. Brain experiment suggests that consciousness relies on quantum entanglement. The HEP, or heartbeat potential, is an electrophysiological event, like alpha or beta wave. Kerskens explains. The HEP is tied to consciousness because it depends on awareness. Similarly, the signal indicating entanglement was only present during conscious awareness, which was illustrated when two subjects fell asleep during MRI. When they did, the signal faded and disappeared. Seeing entanglement in the brain may show that the brain is not classical, as previously thought, but rather a powerful quantum system. If the results can be confirmed, they could provide some indication that the brain uses quantum processes. This could begin to shed light on how our brain performs the powerful computation it does and how it manages consciousness. Another way that I will look at this is saying that the brain is definitely possible of quantum entanglement, implying that your consciousness could be streamed from a higher dimension. Coordinating decisions via quantum telepathy. This comes from the Fritzker School of Molecular Engineering, University of Chicago. Quantum telepathy, or pseudo-telepathy, is the phenomenon where two non-communicating parties can exhibit correlated behaviors that are impossible to achieve using classical mechanics. This is also known as Bell inequality violation and is made possible by quantum entanglement. Back to the originating point of this lecture is that when you are sleeping, your brain hemisyncs and you are clicking out, putting you in a dimension that is above the barrier of the physical light which your body is in when you are in waking life. Okay, this article says competition between brain hemispheres during sleep. And this comes from the Max Planck Institute for Brain Research. By recording neuronal activity simultaneously from the same area called the claustrum on the two sides of the Pacona brain, the scientists discovered that each side operates independently of the other during the slow wave phase of sleep. To their surprise, however, the two sides became precisely synchronized during REM, but with a very short delay of 20 milliseconds. A millisecond is 1,000 of a second between the left and right brains. And if you saw this show Maniac on Netflix, this is exactly what they were using that device to induce, right? There was a part in that show when they said we are stuck in, like, I think they called it like a claustrum. We're stuck in a something like that, but this is the idea where they were experiencing these alternate realities because of the signals that was being sent to their brain, which pushes them past the limits of their physical reality. I find it interesting that when you are birthed, you come through a tunnel, right? Like the woman's her area where you come through is called the matrix. If the micro is a reflection of the macro, then the tunnel that you come through birth is a reflection of the tunnel that you go through in death, and the tunnel that's seen in near-death experiences. And it's often mentioned in the near-death experiences that people are able to view their body like on the operating table. So near-death experience, another way that you can look at that is by astral projecting. You are literally astral projecting. Another thing that I should mention from experience is when you take DMT, you can literally hear your crown chakra pop, which is the moment when you transcend past the physical reality, when you become in contact with a version of the absolute. And one can logically assume that when you have a near-death experience, your crown chakra also pops, right? And this is why your pineal gland, the optic thalamus, is also referred to as the light of the world. That same light that you see when you pass, like that tunnel, the bright light. Anyway, I can go on and on, but that's a stopping point for here because I'm hungry. If you want to see more content like this, make sure that you like, share, follow content so that you can let the algorithm know that you enjoy, that you fancy this content. And who knows, maybe I'll see you in the astro realms. Till next time, peace.
5D Mystery School.